Okay, so now we will do the database configuration. I mean, we'll set up our database. So I'll go in database module. In database module, I will define TypeORM. So there's a TypeORM module. So if you are not aware of TypeORM, so TypeORM is just an ORM, just like any other ORM, like Mongoose and other SQLize, and there are so many things like Prisma. TypeORM provides some utilities method which you can use to access the database queries. We can just query some database. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna so I can use for root and pass some TypeORM configuration. Let me show you what is TypeORM configuration. So these are the things like we need to pass. So and this is actually inheriting from other stuffs as well, like data source options. So what data source connection of if we are using SQLite connection, then we'll be using probably these things as well. But these are just static properties, but what we need is like we need to get the data from the environment variable and from here as well. Like from environment variable, we want this, let's say we want to add +1 or something here in this code dynamically. Then first after it will fetch the data and configure in this fields as also as the environment variable in configuration. So these fields will be configured along with this process dot I mean this db url db sync will be part of the configuration along with this new variables. So the advantage of this is like in future if you want to pass it with some other thing, let's say we are getting some string and we want to pass it in number, then we can do it here. And then this will be part of the configuration, the same configuration where this variable will be defined in configuration module. I can show you like how we'll be using it. So let me just go back in database module, and in database module, instead of for root, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna use for root async so that I can use async properties. Let me show you what is async properties. So these are the async properties. So I'm gonna use factory, I will use name, I will use inject, these things. So probably name is not required, it's optional. So use factory, either you can use existing use class, but I need to inject configuration module here so that I can use the configuration service. And so I will be using this and that's all. Yeah, and use factory. Okay, so let's do that. So in here what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna write inject. In inject I will be using config module. Since we have already configured it, that's why I'm just trying to import it. Okay, otherwise like if we would have not configured it somewhere, then we need to create an instance of it. So at that time we need to configure it with the for root, but since we already have it, so it will automatically detect these things. And now I'll be using use factory. Use factory, it will be an async, and I'm gonna use a method here in use factory. And since we are so this inject will not be actually config module, but it will be a config service. So we need to inject the service, not the module. So to inject the service, we need to import in order to use this config service, we need to import config module, otherwise this service will not be available. We can avoid this by just creating by adding this config module as global here in the property. If we add is global, then we'll not need to import here in here, right? And in case if we need outside in any file here, I need to use the config service, then we can import here separately config module. Okay, but for now, like I may not need here in any other files since we are not going to create some other files. So I'll keep it here only in the TypeORM module. So right now we are just creating an instance of TypeORM module. So before initialization we are just passing this configuration. Now it will return the @rate module. So if I show you here in this, if I go back in dynamic module, you will notice this it returns things dynamically from the for root async. Let me just show you in for root async how it works. Probably will not be able to see it, but if you notice, like, this class has this method. If you pass all the properties, it will return all the properties which we pass it inside @rate module. Okay, now since we are injecting this, so we can get this as first parameter, since this is passed as first one. So I'm gonna use config service, and this will be type of config service. And what else we can do? So now we need to define properties. So since I need to return one object from here, I need to return all the steps, all the options it needs. So here, and since if you go here and you see, like, this needs this one, so I can use it as a type as well, return type. Okay, now let's return the same type here. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna use type and SQLite. If you're wondering how I use this, so since, as I said, I'm going to use SQLite. So if you go here in use factory, you will find this thing, and it also has data source options. In here in SQLite options, we need to pass this type as SQLite, otherwise it will consider. For other databases we'll be using other types. Now in database we need to pass config service. I'm going to get it from the environment variable. Get the type will be string, return type, and here what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna use database.url. So from where this one is coming, so this is coming from common, we are calling with this name and we are accessing this URL, but we have not configured it anywhere, like to use this database, to use this method. So before we are able to, before we can use it, we need to import here, not here, probably I think we can use it here only. So it might, this module may not need other properties, so that's why we are just saying the config module that we will be using only these features, database config. Other stuffs will not be available. And now we can access those properties. So entities, I'm going to pass path and slash dot star star slash star entities. I'm going to name all the entity with dot entity. So, and what will be the extension? TS or .js. You can keep it just TS. This is just some standard views, so that's why I'm writing this way. Otherwise it doesn't need, we don't need to specify .js here. Next, migrations. So we can define migrations as well. So for migration I'm going to follow the same pattern, so I'll just quickly copy and paste the same URL. Okay, you can check more about this here in migration. Okay, probably it might not be having all the details, so for that you will have to go to uh, TypeORM actual website. Okay, and there you will definitely find it. And I'll also configure one properties migrations run true, and you can, and so what is happening, like this it will find migrations from here, and whenever it is true, it will automatically run it. Okay, so we can configure these properties based on how we are going for deployment, and we can explore more about it later. All right, this is still saying something is wrong, so let's try to import it. So we have imported this one. It is still saying something is wrong, not sure why. Synchronize, I'm gonna add one more thing, synchronize, although this will not solve our problem. So database sync, so from where we got this thing, so we got it from here, as we are using this features only. Okay, fine. We're still not okay. Options, TypeORM module options. What's the mistake? For root async. In imports, I'm using for feature config database config service. I have defined here config service. Probably I don't need to use async, otherwise I will have to keep it as promise async. Okay, now we need it to export from here so that we can use it in another or any other module if you want. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna add one more exports, property exports, and then I'm gonna export this module which we have configured here to test whether it is working fine or we are getting any error. What I'm gonna do, I'm going to run this command pnpm start dev. So how I knew like this command I need to run, so if I go in scripts I will see, so I need to start dev so that Nest will start watching the file changes. Okay, so for now, as you see, there's no error and our database.sqlite is created. If I open it, I can see the database is like it has migrations. By default, it created the migration table, also SQLite sequence table, so it will manage the primary key here. Okay, and you might be wondering how I'm saying I'm able to open database SQLite. So I have one extension for it. Let me show you what extension I'm using. You can also use the same extension. So this is SQLite viewer, and you can use this to view your SQLite database. Probably it may have some limitations in free version, but we can at least explore, not edit but at least explore. Okay, so that was it from this video. In next video we are going to set up our auth module.